A very warm good evening to all of you. Welcome to the 134th session of Center's webinar series for teachers. I hope all of you are keeping safe and staying healthy. The topic for today's webinar is blended learning, an approach to combine digital learning tools with face-to-face classroom teaching. And the facilitator for today's session is Miss Chandrava Pathak. Miss Chandrava is a passionate educator and she has been a Teach for India fellow. Ms. Chandrava worked as a lead teacher in IT schools where she trained and managed a school in Pune. She's working currently with lead schools as an academic excellence manager. Welcome, Ms. Chandrava. Okay, before I hand it over to Ms. Chandrava, I would like to tell you, all the participants that you will receive the participation certificates for this session, and we will be sharing the feedback form link towards the end of the session at around 5:45. So I would request you all to please fill the feedback form. Okay, we'll start with the session. Over to you, Chandava.
Thank you so much, Prachi. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the blended learning session. As you can see, we are going to cover. Prachi, can you please move to the next slide? We are going to cover this objective. We will be able to understand the what, why, and how behind the blended learning model. So, blended learning model comes with a lot of myths, lot of questions. Today, we are just going to figure out what is first blended learning, and also why is the need of having a blended learning. And finally, we are going to check how are we going to do that. Next slide, please. The agenda for the day looks like in this 1 hour we are going to cover, of course, all of us have gone through the COVID time. We're going to see what has COVID taught us. We're going to quickly take a look around what is exactly a blended learning looks like. Finally, we're going to see how does blended learning helps in student outcome. Of course, we all are educators over here, and if we are incorporating anything in the classroom, we are finally targeting towards having the highest amount of student outcome. Next, we are going to plan one lesson together. We are going to see how we are going to create a blended learning lesson plan for all of our classes. We are going to debrief the planning, and finally, we are going to close out. Next, please. Great. This is a question that has always stayed with me since the time this pandemic has started. You all are educators over here. If you have to tell me one word to describe the education during pandemic, what that will be? I have pasted a Mentimeter link on the chat box. I would request everybody to quickly move towards that link and think of that one word that comes into your mind when you think about education during the time of pandemic. Let's take 2 minutes. Whatever is the first word that comes to our mind, let's quickly put that on the Mentimeter link. Prachi, if you can share the Mentimeter screen, please. I can already see lot of responses over the chat box. Lot of responses. I can see shaken up. I can see online. I can see remote learning. Yes, yes. I can see lot of words on the chat box itself. Prachi, it's not this one.
Oh, sorry. Is it this one?
No, no. I'm sharing. Okay, okay. I can already see there are a lot of responses on the chat box itself. Non-contact teaching, right, right. Interesting. Okay, okay. I can see lot of responses. Okay, great, great. I mostly have got all the responses on the chat box itself. Prachi, if you can start with the PPT itself. Great. Now that you have actually covered almost all your one words to explain the education during the time of pandemic, now I want to hear over the chat box itself. You can type what has been one of the strongest feeling that you had as an educator during the time of pandemic. You can keep going in the chat box itself. One of the strongest feeling that you had as an educator. Yes, yes, I actually had that same feeling. Unprepared, online. Okay, let's take 2 minutes. Let's hear what are the feelings that you had. Fear, of course, yes, I had that same thing. What else? What else? What is the strongest feeling as an educator that you had? Learning, okay, okay. Hopeful, absolutely, Shweta Agarwal. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, one had to explore a lot on Google, right? Google was our best friend. Yes, I can do it. Confident, helpless at the same time. Correct, correct. Those are the strongest feeling that we had as an educator. And we have to be fully honest. If I am 100% honest with you, I had all of this. At one time, I felt confident. At one time, I felt fearful. At one point, I was so scared to just start with my online classes. And you will see actually what has been my feelings. Prachi, next slide, please. This is what the overall impact of COVID that has happened on global education. If you see, there has been 1.38 billion students who have got impacted because of one COVID pandemic that has happened. And these are the words that has come into my mind every time that I have thought about COVID. School dropouts, year gap, instructional hours missing, and these all of these together have created a feeling within me exactly what you have felt, right? Prachi, please next slide. Exactly this feeling. These two pictures explain entire feeling of mine. Emptiness, helplessness, seeing the classrooms without students, frustrated, all of the negative emotions at one time. Nervous, right? Nervous, extremely nervous. But one thing that kept me going was this one thing that I read once. Prachi, next please. This is an article that I saw few months after COVID pandemic happened. That pandemic did harm education, but it also inspired and innovations a lot in that in the education sector. Every educators were trying something or the other, something new in their classroom, was struggling but bringing the happy faces in the online classes to make sure that none of the students are getting left behind. Next slide please. With this, I come with a new concept of blended learning for you. This was basically something that I tried inside my class. Now, when I talk about COVID, online classes, blended learning does make a lot of sense because it's online. I am teaching over a laptop, over an online platform. Blended learning does happen naturally in that process. But now, when I think of after coming back from the online place where my students were sitting right in front of my eyes, what kind of learning did I wanted them to have over there? Blended learning is not exactly just having my laptop or Zoom open and teaching over there. Blended learning is a concept where you can actually cater the need of all kind of learners in your classroom. In a classroom, it's not necessary that you're only going to have students who can learn easily from writing on the board or reading from the book. There are people who can learn from seeing something, from hearing something, from doing something. There are already kind of students in my classroom who enjoys doing lot of activities and learn from there. There are some students in my classroom who loves reading through the book and writing. There are some students who loves watching video, debriefing the videos and learning from there. Blended learning is basically a model that actually helps you to understand and acknowledge that not all students learn in the same way. Next, please. Now, how does blended learning helps in student outcome? As I told before, right? We are all our educators over here. And as educators, our primary focus is to have the highest student outcome inside the classroom. When I walk inside my classroom, I walk with exact this thought in my mind. Ki how will I make sure that the entire mastery of my class is reaching above 80%, so that I know by the end of the year when the students are giving the exam, they are going to give one of the best outcome, they're going to have one of the best outcome, they're going to do best, and the student outcome is going to look amazing. And how does blended learning help in this? The number one is they increase the student engagement. This is a proven fact. Once you have blended learning introduced in your classroom, your student engagement is going to increase to 100%. It not only about student engagement, this also helps you in developing different type of learning skill. It helps in critical thinking building, it helps in creativity in the student, it actually helps them to understand how collaboration looks like, it helps them to understand communications with each other. And one of the most important thing that blended learning helps in doing is you can actually cater to the need of all kind of learners in the class. So a student who learns amazingly well by watching just a video, you can actually provide them with a video and they can watch it and learn from there. Whereas at the same time, if you have a student who just need your support, who needs you to be in front of that person and help him understand, you can actually be there and help that person understand whatever he or she wants to basically explore. The entire idea of having a blended learning is this, that your student engagement is going to increase, your students are going to learn 21st century skills, and most importantly, you're going to able to cater to the need of all kind of students. Next, please. Now, a very important question that comes into my mind whenever I think of blended learning is, how am I going to balance it? Now, this balance between blended learning is important because number one, we are going to use technology over here. And one most important thing is, we have already spoken that we are going to cater to all kind of students, all basically need of students, right? So if one of my student understands well from technology, he is getting it. But if one of the student doesn't want to do it and is not interested in learning from technology, that person shouldn't be left out. So it's really important to maintain a balance between technology, catering to the need of student, and also one of the most important thing is keeping student practice in place. Generally, this is a very big myth or problem that I have experienced myself when I tried blended learning for the first time. My student practice time decreased, but that cannot happen. If my student practice time is decreasing, that means my entire class outcome is not going to get met. It's more like I am going to only speak in the classroom and the students are going to work very limited amount of time. For this, to understand exactly how this blended learning planning looks like, next please, let's plan one lesson together. Prachi, if you can go to the sample doc. Great. This is a sample document that I have created. It's a math document, but by the end of this document planning, I am also going to tell you how you can use technology for any other subject. Doesn't matter if it's math, doesn't matter if it's English, doesn't matter if it's EVS, science, SST. The idea for you over here to see what is the process and what is the thinking behind incorporation of technology in your lesson plan. So basically, of course, in any classroom, you will have an objective, you will place a norms. If you can scroll down, please. You're going to have the agenda kept for them. If you see, I have put something called data reflection over there. This is something that I generally do a lot with my students whenever I'm starting a class. Whatever data they have got in the previous class, I pull that out. I show them in the current class, tell them, okay, this has been the data from yesterday's class. What are some quick steps that we can take? And those steps are something that we are going to follow for the entire class. Once that is switched, once that entire thing got sets in inside the class, that sets the entire classroom culture itself. Now once that classroom culture is set, once your students are invested in getting the highest amount of data, once they are ready, then it's easy for you to start with your plan for the entire class. I am going to show you the INM that I have planned for one of the objective for mathematics. After this, we are going to talk about other subjects too. Prachi, if you can scroll up, please. Great. This is basically introduction to new material. It's time. It's basically the time where teacher, as if I am the one who is teaching, it's my time for explaining the entire concept. But now the point is, in blended learning model, you actually can give a lot of ownership to the students itself. So what I have done in this entire part is I have divided the INM into three parts. The first part is where the students are trying out things by themselves. They are doing it by themselves. In the second, they are taking help of a video. And in the third, I am the one who is teaching. I am using the conventional board and marker method when I'm going to teach. The first thing that you can see over here is I've written open the Scratch on your tab. Now, Scratch, what is Scratch? If I have to give you a quick understanding of Scratch, a Scratch is a software that is basically used by young adults for making game. It's a very simple app where you just have to pick and put stuffs on the entire platform. The idea of using Scratch over here is not to give them Scratch exposure. It's not the idea. The idea of using Scratch over here is to build their logical thinking. If you see the question over there, it says, I have asked them, I've given them a simple equation, and I have told them to move to the Scratch software itself, and they have to basically show me how that equation looks like in a game format. Now, if I directly give them ki show me in the game, they are not going to they won't be able to do it. If I directly tell them ki ye equation, put it in the game and show it to me, they are not going to be able to do it. For that, what I have to do is I have to help them remembering few basic facts. For that, I have given them, before you move on creating the game, let's quickly recall. I have given them 3 recall questions. Number 1, what is variable? If I have given them equations of algebra, then they must know what is variable. Number 2, I have asked them what is a constant. If it's an equation, they have to be aware of what is a constant. And third thing is a very stepwise thought process that I've helped them to understand. What happens when you have a variable and constant on the LHS and another on the RHS? Now, this is a very how key point driven point question that I'm actually pushing them to think and tell me exactly ki if there is a constant on the left hand side, they have to move it to the right hand side. Now, once this thought process is clear, once they know what is a variable, what is a constant, how they are going to tell me how they are going to make sure that the constant is moving to the other part, now all of this are clear to them. Now they can actually move to the Scratch platform, and then they can create the game. This is one kind of platform. Remember, guys, this is one kind of platform that I have used. It's called Scratch. Now, in the second portion, if you move down, Prachi, please scroll down. Great. Now, in the next portion, if you see, I have given them actually a video to watch. Now, this video is actually from Khan Academy. Khan Academy, I have personally used for 2 things. Number 1 is for their resources. Their resources are really very rigorous. Number 2 is it's one of the best place to collect data. So if you have given your students a work to do over the Khan Academy, you will be able to understand the next day how much percentage of the work has been completed. So your data collections becomes very easy over Khan Academy. Now, even for Khan Academy, if you see, I have used the same strategy. I have just not given them the video and said, Ki, you see the video watching, and then there are questions that they have to think. They have been given questions that will actually help them to get in-depth understanding of the video. And when they're answering those questions and when they're loudly sharing that in the class, as an educator, as a teacher, I will be able to understand if the students have got the entire concept clearly or not. If the students have got the concept clearly, they will be able to answer the questions very clearly. If those answers are not coming clear, that means those questions are something that the video is something that the students have not been able to understand. So if you see, watch the video. There are 3 questions. All the 3 questions are conceptual question. The first question: how is the equation different from the one that we have solved before? So if you see this video is actually a fraction equation question, whereas previously they have done simple equation. Second one, what will be the first step to solve such problem? So when you have a fraction question, it's really important for you to understand what is the first step. Like if I see a fraction, how many steps I'm going to do? That calculation, that conceptual ideation of the student itself involves a lot of importance in that thing. Third question that I'm involved is how many steps are involved in solving such an equation? Over here, I'm not asking them to show me how to solve it. That I will come in the practice time. That I will ask them to do it in the practice time. But when I'm asking them debriefing question, my entire idea is to not to see if the student can solve the question, but to see if the student have got the conceptual idea of that question or not. If the student has actually understood ki it's a two-step fraction process. They have to do it in a twice step. They have to use 2 steps. And eventually they were using only 1 step. Now that I have used 2 different platforms, one is Scratch, number 2 is Khan Academy, but I have used the same ideation, same thinking over here, that you will do something. Either you're going to take questions before doing it, where you're going to think a lot, where you're going to build your logical sense, then going to move towards doing something, or I'm going to watch something, then sit, debrief in my mind the questions that has been given by the teacher. Finally, I have moved to the last part of my INM, where I will be solving one question. I'm going to solve this question. If you see, it's written, let's solve one of the question together on the board. I've also given the question. The question is very similar to what they have done in the video question. Now, why am I doing it on the board? exactly the reason why I told at the beginning of the session, right? All the blended learning does is cater to the need of all kind of students. All need of students are getting fulfilled. A student who enjoys doing gaming, a student who loves doing technology, they are able to do it through Scratch. A student who learns by watching videos, they are doing it by watching the Khan Academy video. Now a student who probably needs more of teacher speaking, who wants the teacher to explain step by step, who wants the teacher to write the how key points on the board, this is for them. Now, these are three things that I have used over here as in a math lesson. This is an example. This is one of the simplest example. There are innumerous amount of softwares, platforms that are available for you to use in your class. As Scratch is one of the gaming software that I use, you cannot use that at all. You can say that I'm not going to use Scratch, and that's completely fine. You don't have to. Your idea over here is not to tell the students how to use Scratch, but your idea over here is to build the logical sense through a technology, which you can do by using a simple thing as stimulation. You can give them simulations video. That is number one. In place of Khan Academy seems to be a is a high rigor resource bank. Even for some of my classes, I have not used Khan Academy. Now, what I used to do for them is there are innumerous other bank of resources available on Google. Somebody actually wrote on the chat box also, right? During the time of pandemic, Google was our best friend. And as and when you keep on searching for resources on the Google, you will be able to come across lot of things. So for mathematics, Exceed is there, Topper is there. For grade 10, for grade 10 content, absolutely Topper is one of the best. They give lot of content to you. Now the point is, my entire idea of having a blended learning in the class is to cater to the needs of the student. And while catering to the need of the student, it's also easier for the teacher to collect data, for which I told you Khan Academy is a useful resource. Now, if you don't want to use Khan Academy, if you feel ki, no, the Khan Academy is going to be another hassle where you have to add all the students, you have to add the teachers, you can simply use Google Classroom. Google Classroom also allows you to include to see your data performance of your student. Google Classroom also actually helps you to understand how your student is moving from one place to another. It also gives you a graphical presentation that you can actually share with the parents also. For the parents to be in the same platform, letting them know ki, hey, you know what, your students are doing amazing, your kids are doing amazing. You can actually let them know. Now, for example, this is a math lesson that I've shown you, right? If you want to do it a science lesson, for example, you want to plan a science lesson, the simplest way of doing a science lesson is give them simulations. A simulation is a beautiful way for students to just see how things are working. If you are teaching them atoms, molecules, there is a simulation that is available on internet where they can actually see how the atoms are moving, how the molecules are moving around. That's one way of doing. If you are doing an English lesson, you want to teach English to your class and you want to include blended learning over there, a very simple way would be, there are always conversion of books available in YouTube's as movies, short movies, or very simple as like a song, or very simple as you want them, you basically want your students to understand, to learn how they want to understand, visualize things. You can show them pictures, as simple as showing them picture. But the idea of blended learning is always, if you are giving them something to see, then there should be something that they're thinking. If they're not having thinking questions, then the seeing will not matter. Same as asking CFUs in the class, right? When you teach them in the board, when you use your markers, pen, when you are teaching something, you're writing how key point, it is important for you to see that they have understood or not by asking CFUs. You check for their understanding, you give them conceptual, you give them factual questions. Very similar ideation or very similar thinking goes behind when we are doing a blended learning, when we are giving them some technology to use. You have to give them thinking questions to build up. Okay, with this, we come to the end of this planning space. Let's do one thing. Let's quickly move to debrief the planning that you just saw. I have two questions for you. For this, I would request you to please use the Mentimeter, because you will be able to see if some. The Mentimeter link will be shared on the chat box. Yes, it had been shared. If you can quickly click on the Mentimeter link, Prachi, you can move to the Mentimeter link, please.
I think you will have to check the chat box.
Okay. I've replied.
Can you share your screen, Chandra? I'll stop sharing mine for a
Yes,
minute.
I can. I can. Okay, great. I can already see people have responded over the chat box. Somebody says there are how many platforms. This is a very factual recall, exactly what you're supposed to do in your classes, right? After using any platform, after using any kind of technology, any kind of thing, what exactly you're supposed to do is this. You're going to take factual recalls of what you just did. So how many platform did I use? I can see there are people who have given three. Okay, 59. Let's wait for 30 more seconds to see what people think. 59 of you guys think 62. Okay, okay. I can see people think there are two. Great, great. There are a lot of people who are thinking three. Okay, there are a few people who are thinking let's wait for 30 more seconds. 20 more seconds. And 10 more seconds. Let's come back at 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Amazing. Great. The third answer is correct. There are three platforms. I'll tell you why it is three. I know why the two came up. The two because I use Scratch and Khan Academy. But the third one was also the board. We can never leave the board by saying it's not a platform. For an educators who have been teaching inside the classroom, a board will always be our best friends. Even during the time of pandemic, whiteboard was something that Zoom provided us. So we have used that. So there were three platforms. So people who have done three platforms, good job, amazing work. Let's move to the next question now. What was one common strategy I was using after each tool? I will want people to quickly write down what was that strategy. I told about that strategy quite a number of times. It's there on the same Mentimeter link. What was that one common strategy I was using after each tool? If you can write what was the strategy. I actually did that. I am actually doing that right now. Okay, okay. Somebody wrote practice. Let's see. Asking questions. Okay, let's see what are the other responses I'm getting. We'll take 30 seconds to answer. Common strategy. I did this. I actually did this through the entire session. Okay, somebody wrote quiz on Kahoot, practice exercise, mix of synchronous, asynchronous. Okay, reflection on learning through critical thinking, giving thinking questions. Okay, simulation, making students to think logically. Okay, Mentimeter quiz. Okay, explaining all the steps. Okay, let's see what are the different things coming up. Great, great. Okay, questionings, asking question technique to make student understand the topic, communicating, asking question. I can see a lot of people have written about reflection, asking question, thinking question. That was the exact strategy. My entire idea of having a blended learning class is only going to work out if I'm having enough number of reflection questions, enough number of thinking questions where the students are actually thinking for you to understand if the students have learned. Great, amazing. For people who have written the answers as thinking question, asking questions, congratulations, those are the correct answer. With this, let's come to the last part of the entire session, that is closing. I would love to see people writing on the chat box. What is the one strongest takeaway from this session? A very strong takeaway that you're taking away from this session. Let's take 30 seconds to just write down it in a proper sentence around what is that strongest takeaway. Okay, I can see people are writing about asking questions. Okay, asking questions. What about asking question? If you can write it in detail, what about asking question? Where? Okay, where to ask the question, how to exactly blend it with the proper technology. What is your strongest takeaway? Let's take time, think and write it down on the chat box. Okay, use of multiple mode, showing relevant video, absolutely. Okay, spark the student to think, amazing, that's a brilliant takeaway. Okay, effective learning, amazing. Let's see more answers coming. Reflection, yes, that's an important takeaway. Reflection is most important thing that we need to bring in our classroom. Plan the lesson using a variety of platform to include all the kinds of learners, absolutely. Poonam, thank you so much for sharing. Showing videos, the blended learning is the new mantra, absolutely. That is something that I am also trying to use more nowadays. Use different resources so that every brilliant, I am loving all the responses that I can see. Great. Great. Now let's move to the next question. What is something that you cannot wait to try out in your class? Like I showed you three different things, right? I showed you Scratch, I showed you Khan Academy, and I showed you Board, of course, the our best friend. Now I want you to quickly write on the chat box what is that one thing that you absolutely want to try maybe next day. That is maybe on the Monday when you're going to your class, you would love to try that out. Plan the lesson to have a variety of way, and the end reflection is very important. Okay, what is something brilliant, I can see mentimeter, creative learning, making class interactive. Okay, using different platform, amazing. Design thinking, I loved it. Design thinking, multitask to cater all student, absolutely brilliant. Khan Academy, absolutely. Khan Academy, you can absolutely go for Scratch too. Scratch is a brilliant platform for students to just explore their logical thinking. Use of technology, correct, that was the entire purpose, so that all the educators get enough motivation to go back to their classroom and start using as much as technology possible. Use of multiple technology in teaching, absolutely loved it. Loved it. Blend of the three. Simulation is amazing, Shilpa ma'am, you should absolutely go and try. For your science classes, it's going to spark the students so much. They're going to engage so much with your science lessons. Experiential learning, absolutely. Use of technology, creating presentations, that's a beautiful way of just making students stay with you throughout the class. Google Classroom, absolutely. Google Classroom has been one of the best thing that I've tried during the pandemic. It was an amazing tool to try. Roles of tool in students live, absolutely. Show the lesson as a movie in English, that will be brilliant thing. Like, that's a dream English class. If I would have got it, I would have been so happy. Great, great. I am loving this chat responses that I'm getting. Now the last question, and it's something that I want to hear personally from each one of you. One questions that you're leaving the space with. One question that you are actually having in your mind right now, and you are probably going to use the next 3 days to probably think about it, find out solution, and absolutely I would love to hear about it. How to use blended learning for different type of, okay, learn about to handle all types of questions. Okay, that's a good way. What are some other questions? Let's see on the chat box. Some question, one question that you're moving out from this session that you're constantly thinking. Okay, great. Reflection, you're thinking about reflection to cater to different learning style. That's a very important question. Scratch, yes, Scratch is a beautiful tool. You should explore it. You will have fun if you try doing it at home. You can make your own games. Interaction through questions, absolutely, that's very important. That's absolutely important. Asking questions, mode of students to reflect. 21st century skills usage, absolutely, that's brilliant. That's amazing thing when students are using absolute 21st century skills. Cater investigation, four C's, right? Four C's, as much as we love four C's, are amazing in the classroom. Simulations, absolutely, ma'am, you should absolutely think about it. Simulations is beautiful. Using blended learning for auditory, visual, kinesthetic learner, yes, that's the entire essence of having blended learning in the classroom, where you can cater to all kind of learners. Whiteboard presentation, amazing, brilliant. I can see lot of responses over the chat box. Great. And with this, we come to the end of the session for today. Thank you so much. It was lovely interacting with each one of you. I hope this session will help you to build a blended learning classroom maybe from Monday.
Thank you, Ms. Chandrama. Do you want participant to ask any questions? If
I would
participants
love
have
to.
any questions, we have
Yes.
time to answer your questions. So I would request all participants, if they have any, please put it in the chat box.
Okay, Srilata ma'am, you have written a question whether all children can participate.
Can
Okay.
participate or not?
Yes, yes, absolutely. That's the idea of having blended learning where all the students can participate. Now, now I'll give you a circumstance which I have seen in my class. So initially there used to be no tabs inside my class. So students never had tabs in their hand. So scratch was not something they could have done. What I used to do is I used to different make different groups. So there used to be three groups inside my class. One group who really wants to do it over the scratch. They used to use my laptop, do it over there. One group who actually used to love doing the logical thinking, because if you make a game you have to first think logically, write down the step, then only you can apply. So that group only used to write the logical understanding. They used to write the steps that they want to use in the scratch to develop the game. And one group used to be there who used to manage this entire process. They used to see if this is happening correctly, if this logical thinking is making sense or not. Basically, this used to help me in developing the 4C that we were talking about, right? Collaboration used to be amazing in the classroom because of this one thing. I hope this answers. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
What?
Asta ma'am is asking us, how can we implement this in government schools where there is scarcity of resources?
Absolutely, ma'am. So I have been in government school teaching for 4 years, so I can help you with it. As I told you, right? Your teachers might have a tab. Your teachers might have a phone. Your teachers, your teachers might have a laptop. So divide the classroom into three different parts. One group can work in the laptop where they're making the game. One group they're writing steps down on how to implement the game, and one group is managing the entire thing. Your idea is to help all the students think. Your idea is not to give all the students exposure to tech. Your idea is not to give everybody laptop. Your idea is help them to understand using technology. Now you can differentiate inside the classroom itself to make that happen.
Thank you. Poonam ma'am is asking us how we can track the student progress through Google Classroom.
That's so if you're there in Google Classroom and if your students are added over there and your students are responding, submitting work in Google Classroom, over there itself, I can actually quickly show that to you. Just give me 1 minute. I am quickly going to show from exactly where you can get the data for Google Classroom. Just give me a minute. Prachi, let me know if my screen is visible.
Have you shared your screen? I can't see it.
I have shared.
Okay, yeah.
So this
Yeah.
is my classroom where there are no students yet. So I won't be exactly able to show you the data collection. But once you start the classroom, there is an option that generally comes where you can see it's written grades. When you click on the grades itself, you are able to see the entire class average. But for this, your students need to be included in Google Classroom. Second, they should be submitting their work in Google Classroom. Third, your teachers must be correcting their work and giving the marks in the Google Classroom itself. This is the three things required for seeing the Google Classroom scores.
Okay. Somebody is asking what apps we can use for primary grade students.
Primary grade students, beautiful apps are basically simulations. For simulations, you can just type in Google. So, for example, if you want simulation for, say, numbers, you just type number simulation and you get lot of simulations that are available. So, you will see numbers that are how basically one is written. The writing for primary classes, writing is something that we teach them, right? We actually ask them to practice the writing. They get that sense by seeing the simulation. Second, you can very well use YouTube poems, rhymes that are there. There are very small videos that are there that actually attracts the students' attention so much that their span of attention increases. They keep seeing that. But again, if they're seeing it, you have to make sure that you're interacting with them using the thinking question so that you know that they were actually seeing the videos.
One of the participants wants to know more apps which they can use for blended learning.
Blended learning, there are thousand and thousand of apps. Like, if I have to pick and choose from there, then my personal favorites will of course be Khan Academy. I told you once why. The second will be, of course, Google Classroom. Google Classroom is one of the most simplest and the convenient way for teachers, because over there you can create your own resources. You can click your own videos and put it over there. You can make your own classroom resource. The sample doc that I showed you is exactly the doc that I used to upload it in the Google Classroom itself. You can use as simple as Topper. You can use as simple as Scratch. You can use, there are Android studios which are little bit more uh, rigorous for students maybe sometime, but if you're teaching grade 9 or 10, they can absolutely do it. They can, as simple as, you can use Excel sheets also. You can make things on the sheet for your students to see. They can also understand Excel working by doing that subject of yours through it.
Okay. If participants wants to ask any more questions, we still have 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, Shilpa ma'am is asking how can we overcome limitations of blended learning?
There are first two things that comes into my mind. Number one is, the idea of blended learning actually is coming with a lot of myth right now. So when I sit with anyone randomly talking about blended learning, the first thing that comes that I get to hear is, it's the use of technology. It's just how you bring technology inside the class. You just use laptops, you use your projector, you use different kind of technological field, right? But the idea of blended learning is not that. The idea of blended learning, basic and only one idea, is to cater the need of all the students. That's the entire idea of blended learning. Now, for making that to happen, there are different platforms with different kind of solutions. So for example, I told you that Khan Academy gives the best solutions of checking the scores. You can see what are the scores happening, you can see the data happening, because data are something that we work with, right? Educators are always more prone towards just understanding data. Now your entire thing, the entire line between using technology and catering to the need, once we are able to do that, I guess blended learning works fine then.
Okay, great. Jonas Lara sir is saying that Tinkercad is a good software to use.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is.
So if we could mention more about it to the audience, maybe it will help.
So these are the softwares that are actually explanatory softwares. You basically have to go through them. You will be able to understand what are the process. Now, exactly what I was telling you, right? There are thousands and thousands of softwares available. Now, what suits best for your class is something as an educator is for us to decide. We have to sit and see, okay, this resources or this content that I see over here is something that is making sense for my class. So this is what I'm going to make. It absolutely depends on the background of your class. So you can choose as much as options available. Before going to blended learning, what I did was, for a week, I just spent my entire 8 to 9 hour sitting and searching for different apps available. That's it. I used to sit, search for different apps, search for different resources, and finally, and also similarly, sometimes you might not get any apps or you might not get any platform. Then what? The easier way is, you can make your own platform. You can actually sit, very simple ways, click your own video. You make, if you're teaching a science class where you're trying to teach them a experiment, you can actually experiment yourself at home, click a video of that and show that inside the classroom. Now why? Now your question is, why is that important? Like, I can just give them the resource and tell them to do it. The entire thinking, the entire concept that the students are going to see you doing is also going to help help the student visualize the steps really well. Of course, they have the option of doing it themselves, but if they are also seeing something that maybe those resources are not easy to carry to the school, You can just make a video for yourself. Best part of blended learning is you can be your own resource too.
Madhumita ma'am is telling us that she used the blended learning model in a government school where her students wrote the script while a few prepared the PPT on her phone.
Okay.
So she's saying it is possible. Thank you, Madhumita ma'am, for sharing that with with our fellow teachers.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
How do you involve? Kyangvi Isaya ma'am is asking, how do you involve the learners with special needs in blended learning?
Absolutely. That's the best way. So learners who have the special needs. So for example, I used to have this experience with a group of students who used to learn only by visually. They couldn't write it. Now, my entire idea is if they have special need and if they're understanding, I am there to help them understand even better. Writing, teaching them how to write, I am going to do that sitting right inside the class. So during online platform, that used to be a struggle because I'm not standing in front of them or sitting with them so that I can help them writing, but I know they're understanding. Over here, when you are doing into face-to-face class, it is easier for you to see that the students has already understood because they are verbally giving you the answer, right? Now when they're writing, you can actually help them to understand how to write. This is one way of doing. The other way of doing is differentiation inside the classroom. You differentiate the students saying, ki, okay, this group of students are going to have one student leader. One student leader is going to help the other members to complete this work. This also helps in peer responsibility, ownership of the classroom, which helps you develop the culture of the class. Your idea of having this inside the classroom is not only to help the students learn, but also develop the values, also develop the culture of your classroom. So this is one way of doing it. Other ways also include where you're sitting with them, where you are helping them, where they're seeing something doing and also doing by their hands. So this is another technique where you see something, do concrete something using your hands, and then write about it. That is another way of doing. So this is another way of blended learning where concrete materials also come into place. Prachi, next question.
Yeah. Kanchana ma'am is asking about the apps which you can use for social science.
Oh, social science, absolute brilliant thing. Social science best thing is YouTube. You can actually search for very small videos. Uh, one of the best thing for social science, if you're teaching them Parliament, you can actually have a Lok Sabha TV small clip, show that over the screen, help them to understand what is a Parliament look like. A Lok Sabha TV video is one of the best way to teach them. If you're teaching them Socratic seminar or if you're teaching them what is debate, you can actually show them example, non-example. For social science, there are wide variety of things. YouTube is going to be your best friend. For this, your software is there's no need of using software. YouTube is going to be your best friend because in YouTube you can find movies. If you're teaching about French Revolution, there is a beautiful short movie on French Revolution that you can show in your classroom. Your students can pick up points from there. They actually don't have to go through the entire text and just read and just remember facts from there because when they're watching a movie, of course your students get more amount of attention towards that movie and they are able to write the facts more clearly. So YouTube is going to be your best friend.
A lot of participants are asking whether blended learning is same as using MI.
Used in EMI,
MI, multiple intelligence, I guess they're talking
it
about.
is I am not sure of that, so I won't be able to answer that. I haven't used that yet. Sorry.
Okay. I think we have covered the questions. Okay. I think we are done with the
Okay.
questions.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
everyone, for engaging. Love the conversation. I guess I will
Thank
answer
you,
for
Ms. Chandrama, for a very engaging and informative session for our community of teachers. I'm sure that our teachers have got a lot of takeaways that will help them use blended learning models in their own classes. Thank you so much, participants, for engaging with us today. To register for more such upcoming webinars, please visit my center. Thank you and have a good evening.